So I've just finished playing Watch Dogs 2 yesterday evening, and it took me quite a while. I played it for 3 days, out of which one day I played pretty much all day. It just captured me, and it was an interesting game. I enjoyed it. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to discuss Watch Dogs 2, and I am going to compare it to Watch Dogs 1, which is also a game that I actually enjoyed, but other people obviously didn't as much, considering that it got pretty mixed reviews, and most of them actually were fairly negative. I was more on the positive side, but I am somewhat tolerant of some games. And again, if the game captures me, if I play it from start to finish, which is almost always the case, I will usually enjoy the game, with some exceptions, of course, but usually it will capture me. Well, in Watch Dogs 2, the first thing that we need to address is that it is not directly connected to Watch Dogs 1. They make some references and everything, but essentially you're a completely new guy. You're not Aiden Pierce anymore. You are a different race even. You're a guy called Marcus, also known as Retro, and he himself is a hacker. Basically, the game starts with you joining DedSec by proving yourself to them and showing how good of a hacker you are. And I have to say that this is kind of confusing at first, because they treat Marcus like he's a huge hacker at the beginning, but essentially what he's actually a good infiltrator. He's good at stealth. He's good at fighting. He's utterly fearless essentially in the game, and that's why he fits in this group very well, because they need an agent who can be more hands-on. But in any case, you join immediately DedSec and you're introduced to the crew, and the crew is actually quite appealing. They are very nice guys. They make a good impression, and this is very rarely the case where I actually have a crew of people who are supposed to be assisting me throughout the game, and I don't feel like there's one who I don't like. So all of them were really nice. All of them were voiced really nice, and they had very interesting personalities. You have the introvert, who's quite asocial and weird in his behavior, but he's probably some kind of a savant, because they mentioned several times that he has photographic memory. They don't say it directly, but he asks Marcus if he saw certain things and if he can tell him the exact parts he saw in a construction factory for robots, which is outrageous. A normal person would not just be able to look at these robots and identify all the parts and then remember them, especially while fighting off enemies. So this is the guy, and then you have another black guy who's part of the team. Then you have several other guys. You got Sitara, the only female of the team, and Sitara is a very interesting case, because she's not made to be too hot. Like, she is dressed in a fairly sexual way, but also very much like you would imagine a hacker to be, kind of a punkish appearance with the colored hair and a very bright makeup. But she also is very likable. So all the guys really of the crew are very likable. I'm not gonna go into detail from person to person. You have to also consider that DedSec has several branches. You will have several HQs throughout the map, on which you can from which to which you can fast travel. And the thing about these HQs is that there are also other guys from DedSec there with which you can interact minimally. And these guys are not interesting. They're more like NPCs standing in there just so the room doesn't feel empty. But your main HQ, where the guys are with whom you will communicate throughout most of the game, that's where you will actually be seeing your real friends and the real people who are important to the plot. And they're very likable, all of them. So I really love that. I also liked Marcus a lot. Now I have to make it very clear, I got nothing against black protagonists. I think for some games they really work well, but for others they're just not as likable. If you take the GTI 5's black guy, I just did not like him. He was not likable to me. Now it could be just me. I'm not gonna go into detail, but I think his character was just not fun enough. He was not so interesting. You got Trevor there, who's basically the crazy fucked up guy in GTI 5. You got the older dude, I've already forgotten the names, I'm sorry about that, but it's been quite a while since I last played it. And then you got the black guy, and I gotta tell you that the black guy was, out of the three, the most boring one and the least memorable one for me personally. It just didn't feel like it felt very generic, like you're waiting for them to waiting for him to make all these R&B jokes and whatnot. It was nothing special. But Marcus on the other end is very, very interesting. He's a funny guy, but at the same time he does have balls, and he does show it. He's also a person who can be intimidated, and he will react, he will get angry, he will show it. So he shows a full spectrum of emotion. He is still a hacker, so while he's kind of a cool guy, he's not too cool. They didn't try to push him out of the hacker frame, which is very good. He's still, while he's a hacker, he still is somewhat cool, like I said, but he's still a nerd, in his essence. He loves this actor called Jimmy Siska, and he loves, the trailer. They watch it with Wrench, who is one of the guys there. Probably my favorite side character besides the main one. And all in all, the crew is awesome, and they have a great synergy with the main character. So that was something that I absolutely loved, and that is something that really got me through the game, especially after the first part, because the thing is that in this first part, the story kind of moves really slowly at first. You are getting to know your crew, you're getting to know the motivation for the game, but not much is happening. The game just hints you a little bit of what's to come, but like I said, not much is happening. And another thing that I kind of don't like so much and that I see in games is that you're the new guy, okay? And still you become the leader of the group. Now, I'm willing to forgive it here because Marcus is basically the go-to guy when you need something done. He's just, the most effective member in terms of field work. He's the one who's gonna go and kick ass and install whatever hacks need to be installed somewhere, backdoors, etc. And that elevates him kind of into the leader. And other than that, it's usually Sitara is usually looked at as the leader, but not so much. They do claim that nobody is the leader of DedSec and that basically they're all equal and stuff. Even your character says it a few times, but that's not quite true. That I don't agree with that. After you've played the game, you will definitely see that is not quite the truth. But in any case, what is very important to note here is that besides the plot, you have this open world. Now, if we talk about the open world, it's not nearly as big as some other open worlds that I've seen, and I have to personally say that I welcome this. Now, first of all, when you have games with huge, vast open worlds, like take GTA or take Just Cause, I'll be talking about Just Cause soon, but in more detail because I'm still playing it at the moment. But if you take these huge open worlds, they are too big. That is the problem. So what people end up having to do is they actually find themselves in situations where they have to figure out how the player will be able to traverse these huge worlds, because on one end they do want the player to explore and see most of the world throughout the campaign. On the other end, of course, the player usually starts getting annoyed at some point in the game when they just tell them, oh yeah, meet me over there at the other end of the world, and it takes you 15 to 20 minutes to drive there if you don't have some kind of fast travel. And then that's where fast travel becomes really imperative. Now here in this game, I have to honestly say I've used fast travel very, very rarely. And the reason for that being that the world is just the right size. You do not want it to be too big. You do not want it to be too small. This is the perfect size for a game of this type for me, and I think they really nailed it here. And the world feels quite alive in the sense that there are lots of people doing lots of crazy shit. Listening to conversations, and I don't just mean when you hack phones and stuff, although that's hilarious too. A lot of them are funny, so I really like that. But then just when you walk on the street, you see different things. For example, I saw a guy breaking a girl's car. The girl wasn't there, but he was screaming, "Bitch, you like that? I'm getting your car," stuff like that. Like he's taking revenge to her for some reason. It was pretty clear. Then in one of the parks, I saw a guy and a girl arguing. The girl basically told him that she cheated on him because he treats her like trash. And she started challenging him. He was like, she was like, yeah, what are you going to do now? Are you going to hit me? Are you going to hit me? Come on, you pussy, hit me. And then he slapped her. And then she started to cry. And she's like, I'm leaving you. That was very funny, but it was very reminiscent of how reality sometimes can be. And you got a bunch of these. If you drive like a lunatic on the sidewalk, in some cases, people will get so angry that if you slow the car down or if you stop the car close to them, they will actually come pull you out of the fucking car and start beating you up. And it's hilarious because at one point this one chick pulls me out of the car, starts beating me like hell, and I'm standing there taking it. And there's a cop behind me. I know that, so I'm not fighting back, but she's just hitting and pushing. And the cop's just looking around, checking me out, not reacting towards her. And as soon as I punch her out, immediately he pulls out the gun and shoots me. And while we're at the topic of the cops, there's something I gotta address here. Okay, making this police AI in these games is not easy. I agree with that. But these policemen are way too aggressive at some point. What they will do is, for the smallest infraction, their first reaction will be to kill you. That's right. So, and then there are sometimes, first of all, they seem to mostly chase just you unless you activate the skill where you can actually set an APB on somebody, and then they will come and arrest that person, or if the all points bulletin is about him being extremely dangerous, they'll straight out come and shoot him. Now, this does not usually apply to a situation. So most of the time they will actually ignore the other people. Sometimes they will react, but most of the time they will not. Rules when driving are completely ignored. Now I understand that this is done for the sake of gameplay, but it does kill a little bit of the immersion when you see a huge lane called bus only, and that lane is driven by everyone. Like, everyone drives on it. Even a police car I saw several times ignoring this, not with a siren or something. But I guess we could say that this is very like because in some places throughout the world, I know this actually is happening quite often, and is being intentionally overlooked. So this is not a criticism that much as it just felt like there could have been a bit more work put into them, because especially this part where, let me just give you an example. So I'm driving, okay, and suddenly someone cuts me off from the side, and what do you know, it's a cop car. I don't know what was wrong with them, but they bash into me. From the side, from behind. So I didn't quite get, well, they came from behind and bashed me sideways. I hadn't done anything. They weren't after me. They were just driving like lunatics. But this triggered them to activate their siren and start chasing me. So they hit me, and they decided because their their car collided with mine, I gotta pay with this. And how do I pay? Well, you hear them screaming, stop the car, get out of the car. So I thought to myself, alright, let's see what happens if I do. Maybe they'll arrest me or something. And so I did. Well, as soon as they got out of the car, they started shooting at me. So, but again, my character is a black guy, and this is supposed to be in the United States, so that might be the reason. I don't know. Bad joke, I know, bad joke, but I had to make it. I couldn't help it with all this bullshit happening in the States as of late. But okay, still, it was a minor thing. It just happens this one time. But like I said, for smaller things, they will try to kill you. They will just try to murder you, and that's one thing that disturbed me a little bit. They could have done it better. Now, something else is that if you don't play on higher difficulties, and I play usually on easy because it's good enough for me. I have fun that way. I don't want too much of a challenge. When I want a challenge, I play Dark Souls. So when I play on low difficulty, and sometimes I will still die. I'll fall off of something or something like that. And the great thing is that the game has extremely generous checkpoints. So you die, you'll pretty much spawn right where you died a second before everything started. So that's really great. Another thing about the size of the world that I want to mention, I did say that I didn't use the fast travel, so I took a lot of cars. The driving is actually very good. Only some of the vehicles feel like boats. And for some reason, trucks are way too easy to control, in the sense that they're way too maneuverable. They turn way too fast. It's like there's no traction, there's no resistance, there's no weight to them. And this actually makes it difficult to drive, because as soon as you press left or right, the truck just wants to go straight to the left. It doesn't take a bit time to turn, especially at higher speeds. But not in a realistic way is what I'm saying. Just some vehicles are not as good as others. Not all vehicles are equal. And that's good in the sense that there needs to be variety, but I feel like just they made some of them practically useless because of this. Now, when it comes to driving, you have a lot of selection, a huge selection of vehicles. What you do not have is air vehicles. So you don't have planes, you don't have choppers, you don't have anything like that. The only thing that you can control throughout the air is your little drone. And I'll get to your actual tools that you use throughout the game, but I just want to mention you don't have that. And you do have cars, trucks, motorcycles, and even water vehicles are absolutely no problem. The interesting thing here is that you can actually, just like in most games of this kind, get a car on demand. So a car gets delivered to you, and you get to drive your own car. But for that, you need to either unlock it through special missions or purchase it in a car dealership. Now I saved up $365,000, I think it was, and bought myself the fastest car there is, which I really like because it really resembles a Lamborghini. It's probably what it's supposed to look like. and I was very happy with that. And this is one of the reasons why I almost never used any fast draw, simply because this car is really fast, and once you unlock the turbo for the car, you're flying through the place basically really fast. You have a feeling of speed, it's fun to drive, and then you have different paint jobs that you can apply to the car. That's a lot of fun. But the thing that I did not like about the car on demand application is that your car will be positioned sometimes very far from you. You want your car to be right next to you, and for some reason the car will appear 250 meters away from you sometimes. It's just crazy. And then other times the car will be positioned in a guarded territory. That means in order for you to acquire the car which is legally yours, you actually have to enter a restricted area with, for example, in the parking space of the police it was. So I had to, and that was one of many examples. This happened quite often. I have to literally get inside somewhere where people will start shooting at me, and there will be a wanted level on me, and I would have to escape later on from them. Luckily, with that kind of car, it's not that hard to do, but it can sometimes be really annoying. Another thing I did not like about the game is the fact that they have a lot of guard dogs, okay? And I'm not a fan personally of the idea of having to hit dogs or even less kill dogs. So I would only just knock them out, hoping that the dogs are doing fine. But generally, I feel always bad about that, so I don't really like that. But I do understand why they have it, especially the police would employ canines in order to catch criminals, so that makes sense. But sometimes it's something that I personally, don't make me kill dogs, is what I'm saying. Dogs are awesome, do not make me mess dogs up. And but that's on a personal note. Now, when it comes to you being a hacker, you have a skill set, and you level up by finishing missions, and your experience essentially unlocks new followers for you. And as you unlock new followers, you will level up, and each level you'll get a certain amount of skill points. These skill points you can acquire through other means as well by collecting them in puzzles. And these puzzles are usually too much of a pain in the ass, so I didn't bother, because some are quite simple, but some require a lot of effort, and it's just annoying. And it's not that it takes so long, but it's more like it's not fun to do. It's like doing boring puzzles for 10 minutes just to get one single point. And if you like in these 10 minutes, you could have made more experience and done a few, invest 30 minutes to get 8 points from a mission. You know what I mean? From several missions, not one. Especially, well, later it gets slower, of course, to level up, but still. Now, even though you unlock these upgrade points, you can only upgrade the most basic skills once. With just these points. After that, you need to unlock special points that you use, and each special point applies to one type of upgrade that you cannot select. In a meaning that if you want to make your drone and your ground drone and the airborne one drive faster for a few seconds, you need a specific upgrade point which you get by solving a specific puzzle somewhere on the map that is indicated. So you need to go and get that first. So I found that to be quite annoying, and at first I thought to myself, shit, I'm definitely not gonna do this, because hacking in this game can sometimes be quite tedious. Now, I'm saying sometimes because most of the times it is not. You do have to use your drones, especially the ground one, too, very often. Obviously, they intentionally made it so the airborne one cannot hack stuff for you. It can just, it can hack just the weakest stuff. The physical hacks where you need to insert something, you can only do with the little ground one. And that sometimes can be really difficult because you need to go through tunnels and find a broken wall or something like that. It can be annoying. But then there's this second type of hack where you have to hack specific nodes. And these nodes that you're hacking, they are, at the beginning, they're very simple and short. And they're kind of fun. But then later, it can get really outrageous where you need to hack nodes on a huge building. We're talking 20, 30 nodes and stuff. Now, luckily, at first when I saw this, I was totally discouraged because I just randomly found one, and that was a huge one. Half of the bridge, not all, but like a big part of the bridge, a huge segment was covered in them, and I thought, what the hell? This is crazy. I'm gonna need 40 minutes to do this. I'm not doing this. Fuck this skill. I'm just not gonna get it. But later on, I found out that the bigger the size of the puzzle, the more simplistic the puzzle actually is. So that's a good excuse for you to do it. They did adjust to that, and they did a really good job at that. Now, when it comes to the missions of the game, the missions are extremely interesting. Most of them are very different from each other, so it's not gonna be boring. Most of the time, you're gonna have interesting missions. There's a lot of story and voice acting in them, so you're never gonna be bored, and there's a lot of laughter. So the game really delivers in that aspect. And the great thing about the missions, the one thing that I really loved a lot, was the fact that they are making fun of real life things. Almost, especially at the beginning, like most of your first missions are about that. You have a mission making fun of Scientology. You have a mission about this actor and Scientology who's basically supposed to be Tom Cruise in real life. Then you have a mission about that Albanian retard Martin Shkreli who increased the price of the drug for, I think it was for leukemia exactly as in the game. I would lie. Maybe if it's something else, just correct me. But in any case, he took some very important medicine for people who really need it and increased the price 5 to 700 times, something like that. I forgot what it was exactly, but increased it outrageously in the States. And he also bought the Wu-Tang album because he's a big fan of the Wu-Tang Clan for $2 million. And so they couldn't release it to anyone else. It was just him. So literally the same thing happens in the game. And again, you pretty much destroy, well, not destroy, but really harm the Scientology, which is called the Church of the New Dawn in the game. So all these things are in there, but they have different names. Like Google is Noodle. And you got all that, and it's really nice to play these games and to be reminded of real life things and feel like you're in a position of power where you can actually fix the wrongdoings in the world. It's kind of refreshing. You are in this position very often, but oftentimes the games don't really present you with problems that are so close and so dear to our heart. These are all very, very recent. I mean, you get Game of Thrones references in there and stuff. So I really love that. All the characters also do a lot of this stuff. So that was something that was a lot of fun. And like I said, the missions were great. Now you have your normal missions, then you have side missions, then you have online segmented missions. I found the least fun because they're pretty generic. Then you have these online co-op missions, same problem, generic and not fun. And then you have the taxi driving missions. And usually in these games, like if you take GTA for example, taxi driving is most of the time really boring and lame. Well, here it wasn't, because in the taxi driving, the first, I think, 10 missions or so are actually very heavily scripted and very, very variable. They're not the same. They're very different from each other. So that's a lot of fun. I can definitely advise you to do the taxi missions. Now, why did I do it? I'm a completionist, but not in the sense that I will try to get 100% game completion. Not that hardcore, but I will try to do all the possible missions, all the possible side missions that are not repetitive stuff. So obviously I didn't do all the online missions, I just did like a few to try them. But all the missions where you have some story content, some variety, something that's more than just a repeat of the previous one, all of them I did. And that's pretty much, these missions are always marked in orange. So that's a lot of stuff, trust me. That's at least, I'm not gonna exaggerate when I say at least 40 to 50 hours of gameplay I put into it to complete all of them. And when I did the taxi missions, I was actually afraid that these missions are gonna be repetitive as hell and boring. For example, like in games like GTA. But I was positively surprised. The only reason why I did it is because I actually ran out of other missions and it looked like there was nothing left to do for me. And I'm generally also going to try pretty much everything at least once, so I don't miss out on stuff. And so I started the taxi mission. I found out that they're very interesting, and ironically at some point I found out that I was supposed to do a certain taxi mission in order to progress through the story. Now, I probably snoozed through that one and just missed it and didn't realize that this was something that I had to do. The game probably told me something to that effect at some point, but I just missed it. But it doesn't matter, I still had fun. The only side missions that I found to be boring and I did not like, which were orange, were the side missions where I actually paint stuff, where you have to go and paint different landmarks with DedSec, your propaganda. And it just sucks because it's difficult to get to the top. So they want you basically to puzzle through it. There's going to be some crane somewhere. If there's not a crane, there's going to be a crane vehicle hidden somewhere not far. Something to elevate you higher and stuff like that. And that was not fun for me. Now, let's talk about the shooting in this game. The shooting in this game is very good and very solid. Now, you get to buy your weapons from a special 3D printer made by DedSec. and you can buy military grade weapons or DedSec weapons, and the DedSec weapons are basically like highly customized versions of military weapons. I went with those because it's kind of cool. They also get all these colors, these cool paint jobs and stuff, and they're a lot of fun. And I found that many weapons, however, are quite weak. That was a problem. The stronger weapons are where it's worth, and ultimately I stuck with an anti-material sniper rifle because that thing can shoot guys through cover. So if you have one layer of cover behind, whether it's a wall or a vase, anything that is just one layer, in the meaning that if somebody's behind a vase and a wall, as ironic as it sounds, the bullet will not penetrate. But if it's just the wall, the bullet will kill him behind. So that's a lot of fun. That's great, and it works really well. Now there are these armored guys, and later on in the game you'll see them more and more often. And anti-material rifle needs 2 shots to take them down. You can upgrade your stun gun to take them out with 1 shot, but if you stun people or knock them out, they actually get up fairly quickly after that. So sometimes in the name of stealth, I would actually stun people and then shoot them once in the head to make sure, with a silenced weapon. Now the stealth in the game is actually working very well. I was quite impressed with that. Again, the only problem are dogs, because dogs will notice you from very far. They will notice you no matter how well you're hidden, because they have a sense of smell. I'm not quite certain how well that will work in a place that's full with people. I find that a bit unfair, simply because all these people would distract the dog as well in its sense of smell. There are a lot of smells, and it wouldn't just be able to suddenly pick up a new smell and identify it as an enemy. It's not how it works, but okay, for gameplay mechanics reasons, I guess that is okay. The game does make hacking cool again. That's something very important. Now, when I played the first Watch Dogs, hacking was not as cool. And that might sound stupid, but for some reason the first Watch Dogs didn't feel to me like it was concentrated so much on hacking. Aiden Pierce didn't feel like a proper hacker either. It was more like what they would call a script kiddie, a guy who has superior hardware and the hardware does all the work for him. He didn't use too much hacking jargon. He didn't look like he was a proper hacker. His missions and his behavior was not like what you would imagine a hacker to be nowadays. He was more a vigilante. These guys are straight out hackers like you would imagine them. They are basically a version of Anonymous in a game world. They have, they have their masks that they wear. They have these propaganda videos. They have the slogan DedSec, showing you the truth, do what you will. And all of this really adds to the whole feeling. And I would say that they made hacking cool again. I'm saying again because I remember in the 90s everyone was talking about hackers. Oh, hackers, everyone. I remember I wanted to be a hacker as a kid. That was a great thing, it was so cool. You see the movie Hacker and stuff. You don't see this stuff anymore because it's no longer as cool. Hackers are now just nerds like all the other nerds, and they're useful, but they're a tool to be used nowadays by corporations, governments, etc. It's no longer a cool thing. And Anonymous, for example, hasn't been active in so long. And again, the missions have a lot of Easter eggs. I just remembered, for example, the Easter egg regarding Cicada, that one message with extremely difficult puzzles and coding that people are supposed to solve. Now, I've recently read about it that they've sold almost the complete message, and from there on it's unclear what happens, because probably whoever made this has contacted the people and they have been informed from now on not to distribute the information. Maybe they'll be recruited or something, but that's basically what was also supposed to happen in the game, so they conform with that. Ubisoft even made a very funny cameo to themselves, where you actually hack the Ubisoft servers in order to steal a trailer and play it so that people can see the next Ubisoft game. It would have been great if this was an actual secret revealing some kind of trailer, but this trailer is so generic and shows nothing. I personally have absolutely no idea what it's about, so I don't think it's going to be an actual game, but it would be cool to see that happen. Now, I've spoken about the fighting and everything, the story, the side characters, the driving of the game. There's always more that you can talk about, but essentially I think that everyone should just play it and find for themselves. There are sort of turning points in the story. It starts off slow, it gets much better later, and the hacking and everything gets expanded to a bombastic level where DedSec are really badasses at some point. I personally loved it. and I think it's really great. The only thing about the protagonist where I was in conflict was that your protagonist Marcus is essentially a good guy. Okay, you are the good guys. You're helping the people, but boy, does he kill so many people during the campaign. If you're like me, 70% of the time your stealth will be broken, and then you will have to kill waves of policemen or whoever is guarding. And most of the time it's going to be policemen because you're fighting the government in your, that's your main target. You will fight some cartels and stuff like that, some criminal organizations like the in-game Scientology and stuff, but essentially you are a good guy, and while being such a good guy, he has murdered so many people. But then again, there are some people who openly challenge him, who openly cause him so much trouble and grief. And every time he looks at them and he kind of doesn't do anything, and he doesn't like when there are story moments and he's facing off a person. He's got a gun on himself, and this person is causing him trouble. He could just shoot the person. He doesn't, because for story purposes, Marcus, at least that's the way I interpreted the story, Marcus is a good guy and he's not a murderer. He's not a person who's killed many people. You do that in terms of gameplay, but you do not actually do that in terms of story. In the story, I don't remember him. Well, there was one case where he actually killed a few guys, and but I'm actually not sure if you could have just neutralized him, because that's literally what, like, in just knock them out. I think you're supposed to kill them. I killed them personally because I found they deserved to die, but usually that's not what happens, and I'm now sad that I didn't try to first knock them out, but I found killing them just more satisfying and I went for it. But I think if I had just knocked them out, it would have worked as well, because it doesn't say kill, it says neutralize, although that usually means that as well, but I don't know. In any case, I think they could have solved this. I'm personally not a pacifist, don't get me wrong. I love killing enemies in games, For me, games like Dishonored that punish you for actually killing your assassin, you're killing, and they punish you, this is something that really pissed me off. And that's, because in Dishonored, essentially, if you went around killing everyone, you got the bad ending in the end of the game. And then there are other games where, like Deus Ex, where if you kill people, you get less experience, which is basically a passive way of punishing you, because they say you could get more if you were nicer, but we're not giving. This is bullshit. You're basically giving me the option between having fun now but getting less out of it, or having less fun but being rewarded better. It's not fair. This game has chosen to give you complete freedom, and I applaud them for that. But for story purposes, they could have theoretically just given me more powerful stun weapons, because they are making their own weapons anyway, and they're making some prototype shit as well. So they could have given me powerful stun weapons which knock out people for very long. Like, we could say, you'll knock them out so hard they'll need to be hospitalized. They will not die, but they'll be serious, they'll be injured. This is something that would have been acceptable. But we have the Batman dilemma here. Essentially, Batman is not really killing anyone, but he kind of is. You see him, hitting a guy straight in the throat with a vehicle, door. So that would kill a person. Several, or like with Faith Connors from Mirror's Edge Catalyst. How many people have I kicked off giant buildings? So many. And she's a pacifist other than that. She killed quite a few guys, but she doesn't even want to use weapons and stuff. Okay, they did excuse the usage of weapons in the Catalyst game, but still she behaves like she doesn't want to kill. So, yeah, I think that would have been a good way to do it, but I'm not complaining. I know many people out there will just not be satisfied if they cannot literally kill the people. And I guess that was a good choice from that point of view. But as long as the game doesn't punish you, go ahead, and I'm cool with it. I'm just saying that there would have been an even better story-wise, a better solution. Now, something else that I want to address about experience and leveling up. I'm not a big fan of this system of having to collect these specific level up points for the specific skills. Just give me the skill tree and let me level up normally. It's tedious, and you shouldn't force the player to do things he doesn't like. Let him progress naturally, like in most games, by just killing dudes. I kill lots of dudes, I level up. I do stuff, I level up. That's something that I find would just generally work better. But ultimately, by the end of the game, I actually had collected a lot of these points because I started going after them. At first, I wasn't gonna, but then when I got used to the puzzles and stuff, you get better at it, and it's not that much of a pain in the ass. So I would say ultimately I think the execution of the game was excellent, and Ubisoft managed to avoid the situation where they usually make a lot of games where you have a map that's cluttered with trash missions. 99% of these missions are useless. Now, this isn't that different in the sense that your map will still be cluttered, but most of these missions, except like I said, the online missions and stuff, most of these missions are a lot of fun to do. So I would definitely advise people not to skip missions, not as much for the experience that your character will gain, but more for the experience of the game that you will receive, more for the good content that you'll be missing, because a lot of the missions have a lot of fun in them, a lot of Easter eggs in them, and I think it's definitely worth to play them. Now, my end verdict for Watch Dogs 2 is it has a weak start. It gets in really well, and by the end, it's a lot of fun. It also had me. It also put me in a situation where I actually expected that someone would betray me from the group. I had a feeling, and this was not the case. It's not. It's not really a spoiler unless you want to hope like me that someone will betray you. So the game is not going to surprise you, is what I'm saying. You're not going to see huge surprise of the game. It's going to be quite predictable, but it's the way I like it. Is the way I like it. Sometimes predictable is better because some of these surprises don't work for me and they just kind of ruin the story. So better play it safe and deliver me a good story at the end of the game than ruining the story with stupid decisions. So I definitely enjoyed it a lot. I think you would too if you gave it a chance, if you haven't played it. And I would like to thank you for watching this video. It really helps me. And I hope you can check out the other videos. I got some more stuff that you might like regarding games. It's all about games, so don't worry about that. And don't forget to check out the new videos that will come in the future. Thanks for watching.